Hi, and welcome to another episode of No Chill McGill on Content College. And today's episode is about something that I've struggled with over the years, and it's just about like maintaining a better social life at university. I feel like when we are very involved with the certain things that you're doing in school, regardless of whether it's your academics or your extracurriculars or certain network events that you do or certain side projects that you're involved with, it takes a lot of your time. And I feel like a lot of people, including myself, could miss out on the social relationship side of university, which actually helps you grow as a person, and that actually is like the more life-changing part of your university. And I think that's an extremely important factor which kind of helps us become a better professional and a better person. So through this video, I just want to give people 3 tips that I've used over the years to just have a much more wholesome experience at university. But before we move on to the bulk of the content, my name is Manat Kurtunga, and this is once again Content College. I generally speak about how students could get to and through university, and I'm primarily focusing on college experiences as of now. So if that is something that interests you, please hit the subscribe button. I really appreciate it, since I'm a small channel trying to grow. The first rule that comes to mind whenever I think about balancing our lives at university and kind of like hacking our way through university is the 80-20 rule. Now, I kind of use this rule unintentionally, if that makes sense, at university, but I realized there's a formal theory to all of this, a quantified theory to all of this after watching a lot of other YouTube videos on things like productivity and whatnot. But like what it's called formally, it's called the Pareto principle. And what it kind of says is that 80% of results are achieved by 20% of effort. Now, I don't really agree on those numbers per se, but I think the principle over there is extremely important, because what we sometimes don't realize is that we could achieve the same grades as like a top performer in our classes by doing less work essentially, or much more strategic work. There are points in time where, like, especially for me as a CS student, I feel like, there are some assignments where like I get 90% and the perfectionist in me kind of calls me to push that assignment even further and push it to something like 100%. But in the grand scheme of things, these results, like the small 10% that you work on, it might not really play a large role in the total grade. Now, obviously, this is like a case-by-case scenario, but I think if you think about it on that angle, you will know where to kind of place your efforts and your time. Like, for example, if I have like an extremely important interview coming up in the next week, each an hour and every second could be an hour to put into practice, right? Now, for me, stuff like industry is important, and like obviously we all have our own priorities. So if I weigh the opportunity cost of doing that assignment and trying to get that 10%, like, I'll realize that, I'd rather put the amount of time that I'm putting for that 10% in something like an interview prep, because then I can be successful on both ends, because a 10% of one assignment might not be a big deal in terms of the entire grade and your entire GPA or things of that nature, and putting one more hour into interview prep might be much more beneficial for me in terms of balancing both those things. Now, when you think about principles like this, it's like when you think about opportunity costs and like what you're losing and what you're gaining, and once you kind of like quantify this entire process, you will just realize that you just have more time. Like, you will just have absolutely more time to do a lot of other things. I just realized that, okay, if I want to get great grades and also do the million other things that I'm doing, I only kind of need to get a certain grade to qualify as an A student. I could achieve 100 and still get that, but what's the big difference between 100 and something like 85, at least on McGill terms, because that's the grading scale that we have. If I could hit somewhere like a 85 or a 90, like around that range, I'll be fine, right? Like, I don't need, like, unlike high school, I don't need to be the absolute best in my batch, because that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't really like pay any dividends for me when it comes to the stuff that I want to do personally. So yeah, like that's a way to think about it. So like, let's say, like, even with your social life, if you realize that, oh, you have a chance to kind of go out and relax, that hour of relaxation might be a bit more beneficial for you than the hour that you're just going to spend like browsing over the internet and just learning additional information that might not make sense. Rule number 2 that I have tip number 2 rather, that I have for students that are trying their best to manage a better social life or maintain a better social life, is to define your own social life. Because a social life is something that you do for yourself. And I feel like this is an extremely important thing to note, because a lot of people expect you to only have a social life when you party or like go out. I struggled a lot in my friend circles initially. At least not over here, but more of like in Sri Lanka, because like a lot of people were wondering like, okay, like what do you do for fun and things like that. Because when I was in Sri Lanka, I was very much interested in going out to parties and just like dancing a lot and all of that. But I realized that when I came to university, like it's just not something that excites me as much anymore. Obviously, like I've done it when COVID wasn't there, obviously, once in a while. But I kind of enjoy just like being out, going to a cafe, talking to a friend, sitting down, and even just like sometimes watching like a water fountain, just like walking around a park, looking at murals all across Montreal. That just kept me very relaxed, and just like having conversations with certain people about, you know, the city and like our aspirations and the way we think about life, and just like staying at a cafe or whatever, like small things like that, and just like hanging out with a friend, just having a genuine conversation with a friend sometimes, that was much more interesting to me at university. And that was, I just felt much better doing that at university. If you're anything like me, I think you should just go on how you feel with certain interactions. If you're not feeling as great with certain interactions or like certain things that you do, it's fine. And like the best part about life in general is that you can change your mind and you can change the way you feel, and you might decide to experiment on certain things again. Like I might like to go to like nightclubs and things like that again whenever things open up. But like right now I have a different style of a social life. So make sure you define it for you, and you make sure you're doing it for you, and not to just fit into this criteria of someone having a social life. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people will say a lot of things about your life and, you know, come to certain judgments about it. And we are social creatures, and validation does play a certain role in our lives regardless. But like it's important to kind of like filter out what kind of criticism we need to take in. Because if you're having fun, if you're having a good time at university, and if you're having a wholesome time at university, then like I don't think anyone should have a problem, especially you. So yeah, that's my second tip with having a social life. The third tip that I have for students that are in university in terms of like managing a social life is understanding the power of sleep. I think sleep is like the most underrated power you have at university. It's because university and just like success and just like, you know, doing well consistently for a long period of time is just a battle of energy. It's like you just need to make sure you don't burn out consistently enough to just like lose interest in what you do. I'm afraid of that. It's something that I fear genuinely, and something I constantly worry about, whether like I'm doing a bit too much than necessary. It's a weird feeling, right? When you're in university, it's like you feel underworked sometimes, you feel like overworked sometimes. It's just a weird emotional space to be in. But a way in which you'll always feel like energetic enough to like, you know, have social interactions and just you know, do more things with your life in general is through sleep. I think like it beats any energy drink. It beats, I don't know, it just beats any remedy to all of this. I think a lot of people just have like a social battery for social interactions, right? So it's important for people to, I think, like rest enough and just like prioritize rest enough to have better experiences with what they're doing. Like I think it's hard to realize how tired we feel sometimes with like the things we do, you know, how tired we feel after work or how tired we feel after studying and things like that. And sometimes we don't realize what we're doing to our bodies and just like how we genuinely feel about certain things, just because we are in this like era of capitalism and like this, you know, productivity struggle where we are all trying to do as much as we can at a certain point in time. You know, what matters is what you do across the day. So as long as you keep that in mind, you'll just have, in general, like you'll be better at what you do, like your work, and you'll always also just have a higher social battery, and you can just like go out and have fun and just like enjoy the city and enjoy the experiences you're in. So yeah, those are the 3 tips that I have for now. It seems pretty simple, but I think I wish I heard that coming in, because, you know, I never prioritize sleep. I still have problems with like sleeping consistently. I still have problems kind of like defining my own social life and like, you know, seeing what I actually like and don't like. It's very hard to distinguish those things, especially from the background that we are coming from. And the other thing is like, I'm still trying to figure out ways to be extremely efficient and like, you know, utilize the 80-20 rule extremely well. So it's something I'm still struggling with. I'm not gonna lie, but it's something I've learned to do much better over the years. So I hope that's helpful, and I hope someone benefits from it, because I think it's very important. It's a very important topic to address. But yeah, please subscribe if you enjoy this content. I really appreciate it as usual. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next episode.